welcome to Coffee and Conversations with corben&lane. Today we have with us Mark Russell, who's actually dialing in from Hong Kong. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Irina.
Thank you so much for joining us today. For background for our audience, Mark is the co-founder of Infinity Innovation, which is a fashion platform that empowers creativity and digital supply chain solutions. Very, very timely with what has been going on over the last couple of years. So Mark, I would love it if you could give us a brief intro to you, but also your platform and what it is that you're providing to fashion companies.
Sure, great, Irina. And listen, thanks for the opportunity for corben&lane giving me a bit of voice time to kind of talk about our solution and our platform. Yeah, we are two co-founders, myself and Paul Chan. I personally known Paul for about 22 years. He's been basically a manufacturer for me for most of my career within the business. Paul basically has come from a family who started manufacturing operations within China, and has progressed obviously from that, and really could service most of the brands that I are predominantly working for, be it limited brands to J. Crew, et cetera, for the last 22 plus years. My background basically has really been working directly with brands and supply chain. And I've been operating at a CEO level for several large trading companies, all based in Hong Kong with global operations in Europe and the US. Paul and I always had a very distinctive mindset in terms of obviously the thought process behind obviously where the industry was to where obviously it could be in terms of process and change. And obviously with the advent of COVID and pandemic, we saw this as a much needed accelerant to address some of the legacy issues associated with the business in terms of cost, time, and flexibility. And we've now come up with a solution that we deem to be very flexible and enough to work not only with large brands and retailers, but obviously to service smaller SMEs, startups, and designer levels, and what we deem to be kind of a non-apparel, which I'll explain a little bit later on.
Thank you. So why don't we go a little deeper into the solution, and let's talk about some of the key benefits to your customers. Why would somebody want to have this or implement this type of a solution?
So basically, we have, so to be clear, we are a solution provider, and we use the best in class software solutions which are currently in the market. And these obviously satisfy every company's needs and expectations. And we integrate this through what we deem to be obviously circular and back-end API integration. We've seen a shift from obviously linear solutions that have been historically offered to a lot of brands and retailers to obviously control production from supply chain, from product development through to logistics. And the shift we've seen has been very much along the lines of being very vertical and being very specialized in certain areas, and kind of moved away from that linear approach into being areas of speciality. We've obviously looked at this in a very specific way because we have found this to be actually quite fragmented and can be quite confusing to brands and retailers as to how best to use these. There are new solutions that are being showcased every single day, but what is the correct solution for your business? Is really kind of what we're at in terms of really understanding existing digital footprints for brands or retailers, and obviously trying to focus on their end solution and trying to come up with a custom-made solution for them as individuals.
So when you look at some of the issues that are facing supply chain, need to diversify, cost and time within within the broader supply chain and sustainability, are all these things that you take a look at when you're building this kind of custom solution for customers?
Yeah, I mean, but basically there's two sides to this. I mean, we look at current market forces, which I think there's a lot that's driving current market forces with obviously reduce barriers of entry, decentralization, decoupled value chains, and the importance of data, which is almost becoming like a new currency. And obviously the technological eco advantage, which we're seeing a lot more of these days as well. And then from outside of the market force, we're also seeing obviously customers who are driving that change as well in terms of their expectations and their needs as well. So, we're moving away from what we see to be a very kind of mass production entity into, basically brands and retailers being able to service micro-season capability, on-demand production, and obviously the personalization, which customers are now, demanding more of, and we're starting to see creeping into brands in terms of a solution and obviously a main driving, force behind bringing customers back to websites or brick and mortar stores, in terms of obviously their that been relevant to their needs.
How do you envision brands incorporating this into their current business model?
So we believe that obviously the most successful enterprises will emerge from the pandemic with a nimbler digital, transform supply chains, and really with a high focus on meeting requirements from what we deem to be the new customer. Lightning fast delivery, tailored products, and superb customer service. And by meeting the expectations of new customers will require an enterprise to excel really in terms of supply chain performance and order fulfillment to ensure these operating and financial models support each other. With that said, we truly believe that retailers will have to diversify away from traditional 12 to 15 month cycles into now bringing product in, as I mentioned before, on a micro season basis. I mean, at the end of the day, what else? How would you encourage a customer to come back and visit a website or a store unless it's newness or a new customer experience to be had? Therefore, the balance and the mix on core items versus novelty items will have to be thought through to ensure that the balance is correct as well. And we've also thought that by providing a really flexible back-end supply chain solution, it really enables the brands to really focus on what we deem to be, really their key focus, and that is really the front end. Really looking at investing money and effort into, the correct use of data, AI, to really focus on the end customer. Our solution offers a transparent digital core to support and react to market and customer engagement. The supply chains become very complicated and we think very duplicated in many areas, which only equates to time and money. And we now, try and focus on allowing brands and retailers to focus on what we deem to be becoming the most important part is really the front end, customer facing, really understanding what the needs of the customer are from a product, and obviously from some degree of customization to an engagement from their respective sides as well.
There's been a huge push for technology in the fashion industry. I think it's been a topic for a number of years now, but there's been very low adoption. Why do you think that is, and what really will be the catalyst to create change?
So that's a good question. And basically, from our perspective, we have been working with, I would say, 4 main buckets of businesses that or 5, basically from large retailers down to small startups and SME companies as well. Catalysts of change in terms of the adoption rate. I think we're moving into an era now where, and it's quite a well-known phrase, necessity is the mother of invention. I think, as I previously touched on before, there has been an abundance of solution information which is currently available. I do believe that businesses are really having a hard time, trying to understand that, the true needs, and envisioning how they get there. As in any companies that we experience as well, there's always a reluctance to change. People are concerned as to what this will mean to them in terms of the teams, from a long-term perspective, but unfortunately, this is progress, right? So, and people can be retrained and realigned to different parts of the business as well. So, I think that digital lift and understanding and uptake is really a necessity that people have to really adopt and get on board with. And I think, as we move into e-commerce, has really kind of almost given every brand the opportunity to be showcased. Literally has flattened the retail sector into an opportunity for all. And really, we see this as the success of these brands will be those who really embrace the digital transformation. And I think we're seeing that now as a proven fact. Vertical integration needs to be one of the biggest goals in any business to its degree of success. And I think digital transformation, digital implementation just goes a long way in terms of making a huge step towards, making that as an end goal. I do think, obviously, what we're seeing right now in terms of sustainability goals, many businesses have recorded record results in terms of profits this year. Supply chain disruptions have led to reduced inventories that are now being sold at full price. So to be honest with you, less is more. I do think people are starting to realize that. And brands do need to adopt what we see as pull models as opposed to being the traditional push models, which totally makes sense. I don't think, people will be looking at and accepting, obviously, fashion and apparel being, one of the top 5 polluters in the world these days. So I think, as we move down this road, digital transformation will, have a degree of, I would say, transparency and obviously that, and give the end consumer a choice as to what they buy, not just in terms of the cost or the product, but basically how it's been sustainably sourced as well and ethically sourced. I see these being really honestly the key changes, Irina, and obviously the uptake of that as being a necessity.
So at Infinity, do you work with these organizations to really identify what it is that they need before really looking at how to put together a solution? Talk a little bit about the process in terms of how you begin to analyze what it is that someone needs.
Okay. So basically, we see our solution being adopted in 2 ways. And basically what happens when we go into companies and start to talk about them is we try and work with them and analyze their digital maturity model and basically to find out kind of where they are and talk about obviously the long-term goals. We have an action, an implementation process where we kind of imagine the strategy, define the strategy, ignite the innovation, and derive the insights, into that. And then, from a deliver standpoint, we create experiences. We reinvent the core based on obviously the solutions that they deem to be necessary for their type of business, and we lead the change. We do offer consultancy on top of that to make sure that obviously that's been led. I think companies, when it comes to digital transformation, do need a specific set of skill sets and stakeholders who really need to drive the change within the organizations. We've obviously been talking to a lot of people, and this has been quite a slow process, and that tends to vary from bigger companies who have been very process driven and getting them out of these legacy issues they've had before in terms of the push models they've been used to working to in the processes and all the departments that go along with that. Whereas, in the digital transformation and the pull model, it's a very simplistic model where it just really has a digital entity that connects manufacturing with obviously the key end retail and supply base. And then obviously we build the platform based on their individual needs and deliver the asset and deliver the data and help them sustain and optimize that, all the way through the process. That could be a 1 to 2 year process. We've had a lot of experience with the bigger retailers. I'll give you an example of one of our bigger retailers in the US who has a substantial APAC business. They have about 180 stores now within Asia. And traditionally, they were buying on the back of their European business or the US business and shipping that into countries of retail from where they were manufacturing it. We've now obviously created a solution for them where within China, we are manufacturing an on-demand solution for them where we operate and download sales and data information on a weekly basis and deliver back to their stores within a 10 to 14 day turn time. So, it really cuts down a lot of the time and cost when it comes to logistics and obviously inventory control and their ability to sell garments at full price as well.
No, for sure. Mark, when you look at, the mindset of these customers, how is it that, we can create more of a long-term vision in their minds? Because this isn't a short-term quick fix. It's definitely much more of a long-term vision shift. So what are some of the, obstacles in shifting that mindset from short-term, looking at it at the now versus that long-term vision? And what are you seeing?
Yeah,
in a customer?
that's a good question. And I think, one of the constant questions we always get asked is, well, how much is this going to cost us? And we always, turn around and say, well, that's the wrong question. Is how much is this going to save you? And I think people need to, take their kind of blinkers off. And we get a lot of pushback when we talk about our costs, because when we talk about obviously on-demand solutions or creating this solution for them, obviously our CMs are going to be a lot higher. CMs, and the people compare CMs to what we are offering them to maybe what they're getting out of Bangladesh. And it could be $1 to $2, maybe higher. But that only equates to possibly 8% of the total cost of the garment. So people really need to look at the pie of the cost of the garment, look at, all right, where do I have to pay more and where am I going to gain from all this? And if you look at, the gains, I think as we look at what we're doing right now for this US retailer in China, yes, the CMs are definitely higher. Our logistics costs definitely higher. That is a yes and a no question, because basically we are shipping direct to stores or direct to consumer. So there is obviously an individual charge for that. And that will be a multiple of the number of times we have to do that based on the number of stores. Whereas before we were shipping direct to maybe 2 or 3 logistics centers in China, who are redistributing into stores. So, what we're currently doing, we're trying to equate that into, a white paper to really see basically from a logistics standpoint where the savings are. But there are substantial savings in this. But to be honest with you, still within the 70 to 80% of the cost of a garment, you talk to any brand, they will always factor in my markdown price. My markdowns are going to be between 40 to 50%. And I will start obviously at a small percentage and work down obviously in a bigger percentage as time moves on. So there's going to be a huge saving in you being able to sell goods at full price. That equates to about 40%, I say 45 to 50% of the cost of the actual garment in terms of what's been factored in there from brands and retailers, IMU. And then obviously the other side, because it is digital, the selling and administration expenses, which normally equates to about 25% to 26%, will come down drastically because of the work content that we've taken out of the supply chain and the overlapping that we've seen traditionally, within the whole supply chain from brands getting involved in manufacturing, where, there needs to be a line in the sand drawn where, my responsibility is to give you a solid, digital back-end supply solution. And, from you to concentrate on obviously the front end customer facing to come up with obviously product, which is going to sell through, in stores.
So Mark, you mentioned that the solution really can be tailored to fit larger enterprises, but also SMEs as well. So that smaller mid-sized company that maybe has lower quantities, maybe has less personnel that are working at that company to be able to handle this. So let's maybe focus a little on the SME business and how do you work with these SMEs and what's the true benefit? to them?
So really, we're actually seeing quite a big lift in the SME area, and we do think that obviously as bigger retailers start to downsize in terms of their operations and their footprint, we do see a lot of the white space opportunities being picked up by SMEs. I think historically, some of the issues that SMEs have had in terms of minimum quantities, but able to work with factories who have been very rigid in terms of the 3,500, 5,000 piece minimums. That's a thing of the past, and people need to understand from a manufacturing standpoint that this has to be a solution which has to be given to them, and we operate that in terms of the digital entity that we work with them on. So within the digital core, we do offer digital fabric libraries. We do offer digital block libraries where we can there's a digital block library there for people to go in and choose different blocks, work immediately from that, or we can transfer obviously what they have in place and create their own digital library within obviously the core. In terms of working with them, we do have been doing a lot of, I would say, business mentoring in terms of the planning and use of raw materials and the positioning of that as well. I mentioned before, obviously, how we use digital blocks in our fabric library in terms of leveraging that, in terms of our, right across our customer base to obviously give people solutions in terms of obviously what they're looking for. And that could be anything from recycled fabric, upcycled fabric, to going to maybe source something specifically for that individual brand. Obviously product development costs, we try and work within the bandwidth to work with them from a digital aspect in terms of 3D renderings, browseware, et cetera, to get them off the ground so that there's not this historical legacy issue of product development where we're making samples and FedEx them back and forward for a good 2 to 3 months until they get something that they deem to be acceptable. We try and minimize that down to obviously the last 1 or 2 samples that they actually need to have, and that has worked quite successfully in terms of obviously the brands and their understanding of that. And then obviously with the with SMEs, we do have obviously the ability to create a direct sales portal where again we agree on minimums in terms of inventories they want to actually hold in place, whether it be in a drop shipment perspective or in their own warehousing. And then obviously from the direct integration from their sales into our sales portal, I mean, they can order from an on-demand solution on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, depending on obviously what we set out in terms of obviously how they wanted to run the business. And, that then obviously takes us into more of away from a sales approximation model into more of a sales precision model. And, which is obviously, selling goods which are obviously pre-sold, which is obviously the best way, selling things through at full price. And then obviously we offer a variety of different logistics solutions as well, whether it be direct to consumer, drop shipments, or directed to warehousing, whatever that might be.
Mark, is the solution tailored only to apparel only, or maybe are there any other ancillary businesses that can benefit from the solution?
Yeah, that's a great question, Irina. And I think we've come across various opportunities with the digital model, and this is the great thing about it. It's just become so flexible and very easy for people to work with us in terms of creating customized solutions for their business. So when we talk about non-apparel, we talk about obviously businesses that do require some degree of apparel within their organization, but they don't know where to go to get it. And traditionally, they've gone to individual websites where they buy direct, and the choice and the offering has been very, very small and also very, very expensive. So we've started to work with hotels in Hong Kong, where we have created their own digital, almost like a Shopify account. We design into their needs. We work with them on their needs in terms of their front desk uniforms, their restaurant uniforms, their aprons, whatever it might be within the organization, design into that, customize that in terms of what their needs are. We offer a variety of different fabrications. We do a lot of antiviral fabrications, which is extremely popular right now, considering the world that we live in. And these have been incredibly well received in terms of obviously getting something which is really appropriate to the hotel's brand, as opposed to being, just going on to a regular site where everybody else is buying from in terms of just regular retail for that particular type of industry. So it breaks it down into more customized, more, working really hand in hand with, be it hotels or be it, even down to medical uniforms. We do work for dentists. We do work from medical areas as well, in terms of doctors and nurses uniforms. There's also an area of specialty that we work on, down to management services uniforms, where companies who are out, like an AT&T uniform or a FedEx uniform, where obviously companies do need an apparel solution which is fit for their business in terms of the brand, and obviously its conformity to the day-to-day workings and needs.
No, that's very interesting, especially as these day-to-day needs have changed with the environment that we live in. I think that it's really important to be able to, provide that kind of, whether it be protection or solution to these companies to help them, grow without worrying about the apparel side of it, which is not really their core business. So that's great.
Yeah, very much so. And I think they're very appreciative of the fact that they now have a solution where they can sit down and talk about their individual needs for that particular customer, or the brand of the hotel which they want to get across, whether it be sustainability or antiviral, to make people comfortable in terms of the environment they're actually coming to dine in, or whatever that might be.
Mark, I mean, this is a very, very timely topic. I think that your solution is one that most are seeking at this point, and I think that it's great that you're able to share that with us. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Irina, for the opportunity to discuss Infinity. Thank you very much.